Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank the conference organizers for giving the study team, represented by myself, the opportunity to present the results of the feasibility and acceptability of HIV treatment as prevention intervention in rural South Africa. It's now a well-established fact that the plasma HIV viral load is the primary determinant of the risk of HIV transmission. And because antiretroviral therapy reduces plasma viral load, it was hypothesized that antiretroviral therapy can reduce the risk of HIV transmission. And this was indeed demonstrated to be the case in the HPTN 052 study in stable couples, and also in a population-based cohort study that took place at the Africa Center in rural KwaZulu-Natal. A cluster-randomized trial is now implemented to assess the effectiveness of using ART as prevention at the population level in rural KwaZulu-Natal. The ANRS TasP trial is conducted in phases. The objective of the first phase was to estimate the feasibility and acceptability of the TasP intervention, as well as to validate and update the parameters of the model used to estimate the expected impact of the intervention with respect to uptake of HIV testing, HIV prevalence, linkage to cure upon HIV diagnosis, ART uptake, and internal migration, while the objective of the main trial was to estimate the effect of population health on the reduction in HIV incidence. This is a two-arm cluster randomized trial with community and clinic components. The community components involve 6 monthly rounds of home-based HIV testing, while the clinic component is for the treatment and care of HIV-infected participants. In the intervention arm, to your right, all HIV-infected participants are offered treatment regardless of CD4 count, while in the control arm, HIV-infected participants are offered treatment according to South African guidelines with a CD4 threshold of 350. Sample size calculations showed that with 1,000 eligible participants per cluster, we would require 22 clusters to have an 80% power to show a 34% reduction in cumulative incidence. This slide shows the TasP trial area. Is located in the Klabisa sub-district in rural KwaZulu-Natal, and this is 3 hours drive north of Durban, and is home to about 220,000 Zulu-speaking people with an estimated HIV prevalence of 24%. The map reflects that of the sub-district, and in the southern part in gray is the Africa Center Demographic Surveillance Area, while in the northern part are the TasP trial clusters. The color code indicates when the clusters were implemented. The 4 pink clusters were implemented in March 2012, and the 6 yellow clusters were implemented in January 2013. And these 10 clusters make up the phase 1 clusters, which I'll be presenting the results on today. And the blue clusters represent the additional clusters, the additional 12 clusters, which are now implemented in June 2014. And altogether, they make up the 22 clusters for the main trial. So this slide shows a map of a satellite image background of the clusters. And all the homesteads in the clusters were mapped and assigned a bounded structure unique ID number, and that's represented on the map. So our field workers who are trained HIV counselors carry netbooks, and the netbooks are equipped with maps of the trial clusters as well as inbuilt GPS functionality, and this allows the field workers to identify the homesteads. So when they get to the homestead, they obtain verbal consent from the head of the household to enter the homestead. After explaining the purpose of the study to the head of the household, he is asked to enumerate all eligible members of the household. And to be eligible, a member has to be resident, be 16 years or older, and be willing to give written informed consent. The household head is asked to complete a household asset questionnaire. Eligible individuals are taken to a private corner in the household and consented for the study procedures. They are asked to give dry blood spots. They are also consented for a rapid HIV test. All participants are given a barcoded TasP card which contains the participant's unique ID number. After the home-based HIV testing, those testing negative are followed up in subsequent surveillance, while those who self-report as positive or newly diagnosed positive are referred to the TasP trial clinics, and there's a trial clinic located in each cluster. Now results. Okay, this is a flowchart that summarizes our enrollment in the last 2 years, and I'll walk you through it. Please just follow the arrows. About 13,000 individuals were registered as eligible for the study, and of these, we were able to contact 78% of them. 95% of contacted individuals agreed to participate in the study. Of the 78% contacted, we were able to ascertain the HIV status of 82% of them, of whom 31% were positive. That is those self-reporting as positive and newly identified as being positive. Of these 2,500 individuals identified as positive, nearly 50% were already in care, while another 50% weren't in care. Of those not in care, another 50% entered into care. This slide shows the repeat HIV ascertainment rates. For a universal test and treat approach to be successful in reducing HIV incidence, large numbers of people need to be aware of their HIV status and be willing to test repeatedly so that those who become positive are started on ART as soon as possible. I need you to keep your attention on the green boxes. After the first contact, we were able to ascertain that about 5,000 individuals tested negative. Of these 5,000 individuals that tested negative, we were able to recontact about 2/3 of them a second time. And of those recontacted, 85% accepted an HIV test a second time. This slide looks at ART coverage after referral, at the time of referral by the field workers. This trial is being implemented in a community already exposed to antiretroviral therapy, so some HIV-positive participants were already established on ART. So the ART coverage at the time of referral was nearly 40%, and this is 40% of all HIV-infected participants, not 40% of those eligible for ART. And looking at the control and intervention arms, there's a slight difference in ART exposure at the beginning of the trial. So when we look at ART initiation amongst those not on ART at the time of referral, and the denominator for this includes those not in care as well, as we're interested in population ART coverage, the ART initiation at referral was about 33%. After referral was about 33%. And when this is restricted to those observed within a year, it approached 50%. In the control clusters, about 39% of individuals had initiated ART, while in the intervention, 55% had commenced ART. So when we look at ART initiation amongst those not on ART at referral, but who are linked to the TasP clinics, about 64% of them had initiated ART, 45% had initiated in the control clusters, and 85% in the intervention arm as expected. But when this is restricted to those with CD4 count of above 350 in the intervention arm, about 80% of them had initiated antiretroviral therapy. So this table compares the parametric assumption of the models with our observed indicators. The STD-SIM model was used to calculate the expected impact of the intervention, and we assumed that ART reduces infectiousness by about 90% and that contamination will be about 10%. We don't have that data available yet, but it's collected. We assumed that the HIV test will be offered to 90% of those registered, and we were able to contact 67% of individuals per home-based round of testing. And we assumed that 80% of them will accept the HIV test, but we observed 77% acceptance per calendar round. The model assumes a linkage to care upon diagnosis of 70%. We observed 48% entered into care within 6 months of diagnosis, increasing to 63% within a year. The baseline proportion of individuals on ART was about 39%, and this was similar to what was observed. And the model assumed an HIV prevalence of 24%, but we observed 30%. And the observed and assumed incidents were similar. To conclude, we observed that there was high community acceptance of the trial, with 95% of individuals agreeing to participate. We also observed high initial and repeat HIV ascertainment rates. However, linkage to care was slow, and that's probably because of home-based testing identifies individuals earlier in the course of their HIV infection, and majority of whom are asymptomatic. We observed high ART uptake rates, especially amongst those that are linked to the TasP clinics. And currently, interventions to improve linkage to care are being scaled up. And now that we've demonstrated that the TasP intervention in rural South Africa is feasible and acceptable, the second phase of the trial is now implemented and will report mid-2016. I'd like to acknowledge the trial participants for allowing us into their homes, and my colleagues who work tirelessly from various locations to support the trial. I'd like to acknowledge the Department of Health of South Africa for their immense support and political commitment, Merck and Gilead for supplying the atripla used in the trial. I'd like to acknowledge the ANRS, the funder of the study, as well as sponsor, the German corporation, 3IE, and the Wellcome Trust that provides the core funding for the Africa Center. Thank you for your attention.